Hey friends, welcome to this Inspire series where we bring up testimonies from the hidden gems from all over the world. I am inspired by one of the Bible verse that is in book of Acts chapter 1 and verses 8. You will be my witness to the ends of this earth. But how we can know each other's testimony? When I was thinking about it, I came up with a thought to do a series in the Faith Nuggets channel. And today I'm with one of my friend, Sam Venter. She's have an excellent and amazing testimony in her life. So when I heard it, I was so much inspired. Let us dive into that interview.
Hi, Dayakar. Thank you so much for inviting me here today. So I think first and foremost, I am a reborn Christian and an absolute lover and follower of Jesus. I have followed Jesus for 22 years. I'm in the same church that I've been in since the day I was saved, Thrive Church in Edenvale, South Africa. I've got a bachelor's degree in community development and outreach. I have two children, teenagers, been on many missionary trips into Africa, Zimbabwe, Zambia, and I'm also the managing director. And that is an NGO that works with women that have been exploited and that are stuck in the sex industry. So we help them to live restored and equip them for living new lives, which is really awesome.
To know your testimony before what is happening, but I want to know that how was your childhood?
I had a very difficult childhood, Dayakar. My father was an alcoholic and he was diagnosed as a psychopath. He used to beat us. He beat my mom. He beat us kids terribly. We were, I mean, put in hospital, all sorts of things like that. It was really, really bad. When I was 7 years old, I was molested by my father's best friend. And then the last time he beat any of us was he beat me and he put me in hospital. I had strangle marks around my neck and everything. He almost killed me. Then my mom ran because he went to prison for 6 months. So she ran and she met my stepdad, who was also abusive. He used to beat her terribly. He never beat us because he knew he would go to jail for that. He wasn't our father. And in those times, there wasn't much help for gender-based violence or anything like that. So, the police didn't really get involved if it was the father. But as stepfather, he would have gotten into big trouble. And but he used to call us terrible names. I won't mention them here, but just in front of people everywhere, he would just say the worst things possible that he could say to us. So when I was 16 years old, well, first of all, I skipped a part where I was gang raped in Standard 5 by a bunch of boys at a camp. I told the teacher, and she told me I shouldn't have been hanging around with them, so nothing happened from that. And then when I was 16 years old, I was raped again by a man that worked with my mother. And he begged my stepfather not to say anything. And my stepfather told him, well, fine, buy me a pair of tackies, which is a pair of sneakers, and we'll call it quits. And so he basically sold my body and my soul for a pair of sneakers. I can laugh now, but obviously it wasn't funny at the time. And so then I decided to move away from home. I was in matric at my final high school year for 3 days. My sister told me to come and live with her, but obviously because we were all abused, she was also very aggressive and violent. And so she would just, hit me and also call me names and all sorts of stuff. And so a lady that I worked with doing the nail course, I was doing nail technician course, nail art and all that fancy stuff. And a lady that I worked with, she seemed to take quite an interest in me, and she asked me a lot of questions about my life. And so I opened up to her. And then she said to me, well, why don't you come with me to Cape Town and we'll go dancing there? You can go make a lot of money. You can get away from your family and all these troubles. And yeah. So when I got to Cape Town, I realized very quickly that there was no dancing involved, and that she had actually taken me to a brothel. So I was 16 years old and I was taken to a brothel in Cape Town. And then she left me there. And she said, her and her boyfriend are getting back together again, because she told me that her and her boyfriend broke up. She said her and her boyfriend are getting back together, and so sorry, she's leaving. And only later on, when I got involved with Cherish, that I actually realized that I had been trafficked. So at the age of 16, I was trafficked into prostitution and also trafficked to Singapore, also for prostitution. And yeah, and so that pretty much sums up my childhood. I know you've got more questions, so that will answer the turnaround after that.
Yeah, definitely. But that is too tough, and too terrible to bear
Yeah.
such a pain in childhood, where children only know that time only to depend on parents and only to enjoy their childhood. This kind of incident will impact and wrongly and negatively impact the entire life.
Yeah.
As anyone see, they go very bitter in their life, and they want to take, as of I know, I don't have much knowledge, but they become like they want to, end up lives sometimes. So now I want to ask you, what was your feeling when you went through such an attacks and molested from the people that you closely known by them?
Yeah, it's very difficult, Ayaka, especially when people are not standing up for you or protecting you. You feel all alone. You feel worthless. You feel like, who are you? Why are you even here? As a child, you feel abandoned. You feel angry and sad. And yeah, I mean, sometimes as a child, you feel like, you're not loved. Your parents don't love you. Your family doesn't love you. My mom, even though she loved us, we were angry because she never protected us. She allowed all these things to happen. So, as children, my older brother and sister, they were also very angry from all the abuse. And so they used to abuse me as well. So you're lost. You feel like you're drifting. You've got nowhere to belong. You're broken inside, completely broken inside as a child and as a teenager. You've got no sense of direction. It's terrible.
This
Yeah.
really really inspires. This how Jesus changed your life, and when did you feel that encounter in your life?
Yeah. So I was still in Cape Town at the time. Obviously, I was a drug addict. When you're working as a prostitute, you have to take drugs in order to be able to cope with everything. It's soul sucking. It eats at your soul every day. And I had gone away for a weekend with a bunch of friends, and we were taking drugs and partying and everything like that. And I just decided I wanted to go take a walk on the beach. And while I was on the beach, I just suddenly felt, and I knew it was God because He was saying things to me that I had never heard in my life before. I had never been complimented. I had never been shown unconditional love. And He was saying things to me like, I love you, my child. This is not the life that I have for you. I have so many better plans for your life. So many good things. I can't remember every word that He said, but all I remember is this feeling of peace and love and just breakthrough, because I just started crying. I was crying and crying and crying and crying. And I just knew it was Jesus being like that. And then I decided to take a walk on the beach one afternoon. It was the middle of winter, so it was freezing cold. And especially in Cape Town, the water in Cape Town is ice cold. It's like drinking fridge water in winter. And I just needed to get away from the noise. But I think it was almost like I'd been pulled, because many nights I would drive home. I mean, I wasn't even allowed to have a license yet, but I was already driving a car and doing crazy stuff. And I remember my mom was a Christian, and I used to drive home from the brothel, and I would cry, and I would start calling out to Jesus and saying, You know, I don't know if you exist. I don't know if you're real. But if you are, please, you got to help me. You got to get me out of here. I can't take it anymore. I started having panic attacks at night where I felt like if I fall asleep, I'm not going to wake up again. So I'd fight, you know, in my spirit and all of that. It was terrible. And so this weekend when we had gone away, I was sitting on the beach with, had walked away from the party, and I was sitting on the beach. And the next minute, this voice just started talking to me, just showering me with love. And I knew it was God because it was stuff I had never heard in my life before. And he was saying, my precious daughter, don't you know that this is not my plan for your life? I've got so much more for you. I love you, and I'm sorry for all the pain and the suffering that you've been through. And I just knew in that moment beyond all doubt that it was God. At that point, I didn't really know Jesus. I didn't know much about Jesus, but I knew it was God. And I just cried and cried and cried. And I remember looking at the beach, and I felt the need to walk into this water. And like I said, it was ice cold water. And so it's not something you would just do naturally. And I even, like, while I was standing in the water, I even dunked myself backwards. And only later, when I started going to church and stuff, did I realize, and learning more about God and, you know, the Bible, that I realized that I was actually baptized that day, you know, by the Holy Spirit. And that was really amazing. And then my life just started changing, not so much on the external, but internally. I started becoming a completely different person. I started writing songs and letters to all the people that hurt me in the past. And I would read them to the ladies in the brothel, and they would just, women would cry, and women started leaving the industry and all that kind of stuff. And then eventually one day I was sitting there looking around, and I was just saying, what am I doing here? I don't belong here. And yeah, just through that process of healing, I realized, hold on, this is not the life that God has for me. And so I left. Changing, that's when I went to my church, and I got baptized in church. And I was so passionate about God. You know, I was just so on fire. Obviously, there's so much more that happens in between to fall in. Life wasn't just a bed of roses. A lot of very difficult things happened. But one of the things I can remember, I went up for prayer, and one of the ladies in our church, she put her hand on me to start praying. And so as she was praying, she said to me, Sam, God wants you to know that he's going to restore everything that has ever hurt you. And I went home and I prayed, and I said, God, how are you going to restore my father? He's dead. And God said to me, what better father could you ask for than me? And that began the personal relationship between me and God.
That's an inspiring story. I find God, He is the Father to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
From the